Now, in other news, South Korea's defense chief has stressed that Seoul will not, under any circumstances, accept North Korea as a nuclear state and will powerfully respond to its provocations. Speaking at a forum in Singapore earlier on this Monday, Song Yong-moo said the most urgent and grave security threat in the Asia-Pacific region is Pyongyang's nuclear and missile development. He emphasized that Seoul will work towards a complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula through peaceful measures like dialogue and negotiation. Sanctions and pressure will only be the means of achieving this. Mentioning North Korea could have been secretly trading with other nations using foreign vessels. Minister Song urged all nations in the region to abide by UN sanctions and up the pressure on the regime.
South Korea plans to send its skiers using a chartered flight to cross over to the north. The trip for a two-day joint training session could happen as early as Wednesday. Our Kim Young-gil gets us up to speed with the ongoing inter-Korean exchanges.
South Korea's Unification Ministry said Monday that it will send its non-Olympic skiers to North Korea's Masinyeong ski resort for a two-day joint training using a chartered plane. The Galma airport is some 45 minutes away from the Masinyeong ski resort.
North Korea will provide South Korea with the necessary conveniences. We will not pay fees for using the North's airport and airspace, as such a payment could go against international sanctions.
If Seoul charters a plane from an airline which is currently providing flights to the U.S., then it would violate U.S. sanctions. Therefore, Seoul is pondering over sending a chartered airline that does not have flights to the U.S. U.S. President Trump announced a set of sanctions in September that include banning vessels and aircraft that have visited North Korea from visiting the U.S. within 180 days.
When it comes to joint events, we are closely consulting with the US and the international community in a bid not to spark a row over possible violations of sanctions.
The two Koreas also agreed to hold a joint cultural performance in Mount Kumgang on the northeast coast ahead of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. However, Seoul may have to bring refined petroleum products to the north when it holds the cultural event, as Pyongyang said it will be difficult for it to supply power to a facility built by the South Korean side. But delivering refined petroleum products to the north could be tricky, as the UN and US have either put a cap or banned exports of crude oil and petroleum products to North Korea. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
All right, well, the Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, has already said, we're ready in case the North Koreans try to pull some stunt or do something militaristic. And given the proximity of the Olympics coming up next month in Seoul, South Korea, and the fact that North Korean athletes will be marching in with South Korean athletes on the same flag, by the way, what could possibly go wrong with that until we got word now that the North Koreans are planning something right before the Olympics themselves. Now, we're told a lot of it could be just innocent, just a big old parade or whatever. But other things come to mind. Retired four-star general, Fox News senior strategic analyst Jack Kane. General, always good to see you. What do you make of this now? Obviously, the defense secretary is worried. He's sending out a message. Look, we know you and the South are, doing things together and kind of, moving along here, but so are we. What does he mean?
Well, I think I know what he means. He's saying we're trying to get ready, but I wish we were doing some more things demonstrably than what we are doing, to be frank, because I firmly believe that if you want to prevent war, then make sure you're fully prepared for it. So what am I talking about? We've got the #1 cyber offensive capability in the world. No one's even close to us. We should be attacking North Korea's information systems, command and control, their finance systems, and their energy infrastructure. We should be taking that country down electronically. Second, we should put in place a naval blockade of North Korea to cut off the door that we know exists where he's getting fuel and other supplies. And the third thing is we should start to bring our forces into the theater. If we're saying we're going to go to war to prevent him from having a nuclearized ICBM, we have to show him some of that capability. We should not just be talking about it. Flying a bomber in for 2 or 3 days isn't impressing anybody. Let's put in place some of those resources that we would need to thicken the defense in South Korea and load up those bases, naval and air bases, with the capabilities we need, and then stop sending the military families to South Korea. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. It should be what we call an unaccompanied tour, troops only.
You think anything weird is going to happen for the Olympics?
Oh, I think if he does something, it'll be likely another missile test.
Why would he risk that when his own people are going down to South Korea? He's enjoying this cozy way of sort of edging us out by dealing directly with the South Koreans. Why would he risk harming them?
Well, I'm speculating.
Yeah,
this is one of the things he could do. I think, yes, he's getting out of this what he wanted, and he uses negotiations to promote goodwill, and he's also obviously, it's not going to work, trying to drive a wedge between South Korea and the United States and Japan. That's just not going to happen here. But I don't think he's going to do anything that's going to damage that goodwill that he currently has as a result of these negotiations. And I believe that these negotiations are unlikely, Neil, to lead to something more positive, though talking is always better than shooting. I mean, let's be real about that.
Yeah.
But I doubt if they're going to go anyplace, frankly.
All right, General, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you very, very much.
At an international security forum, the nation's defense chief used some strong words to warn North Korea against using nukes to attack Seoul or Washington. According to our Jong, he also reassured in dealing with Pyongyang's threats, South Korea's non-proliferation stance remains unchanged.
North Korea will be wiped off the world map should it use nuclear weapons on South Korea or the United States. That's what South Korea's Defense Minister Song Yong-moo confidently stated on Monday at a security forum in Singapore. When asked whether Pyongyang has a coercive purpose to its nuclear weapons program, Minister Song said the North attacking South Korea or the U.S. won't happen for real, and that the nuclear development program is just a part of the Kim Jong-un regime's propaganda strategy. He stressed that it's, quote, anachronistic to say Pyongyang will use its nuclear weapons, but added, if it does, then the regime will be erased off the world map. And to deal with this threat, Minister Song gave assurances that South Korea won't be deploying tactical nuclear weapons, but developing stronger conventional weapons to keep peace, not go to war. The remarks came during a question and answer session after Minister Song's keynote speech at the 2018 Fullerton Forum, the very first as Seoul's defense chief. During his address, he stressed the most urgent and grave security threat in the Asia-Pacific region is Pyongyang's nuclear and missile development, and said South Korea will not under any circumstances accept North Korea as a nuclear state. He emphasized that Seoul will work towards a complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula through peaceful measures like dialogue and negotiations, saying sanctions and pressure will only be used as means of achieving this. Mentioning that North Korea could have been secretly trading with other nations using foreign vessels, Minister Song urged all nations in the region to abide by UN sanctions and up the pressure on the regime. 오정희, 아리랑 뉴스.
And while the two Koreas are increasing cooperation for joint events, U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis says that the Olympics should not distract from the internationally agreed goal of denuclearizing North Korea. In a meeting on Friday with his South Korean counterpart Song Yong-moo at U.S. Pacific Command headquarters in Hawaii, Mattis said he welcomes the talks on Olympics-related matters, but the international pressure campaign must continue to pressure North Korea to denuclearize. Mattis also said the Kim Jong-un regime is still a threat to the entire world and that Washington's response remains focused on diplomacy backed up by military options.
have been secretly trading with other nations using foreign vessels. Minister Song urged all nations in the region to abide by UN sanctions and up the pressure on the regime. Forum in Singapore earlier on this Monday, Song Yong-moo said the most urgent and grave security threat in the Asia-Pacific region is Pyongyang's nuclear and missile development. He emphasized that Seoul will work towards a... Now, in other news, South Korea's defense chief has stressed that Seoul will not, under any circumstances, accept North Korea as a nuclear state and will powerfully respond to its provocations. Speaking at a complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula through peaceful measures like dialogue and negotiation, sanctions and pressure will only be the means of achieving this. Mentioning North Korea could